Well, thank you everyone for joining us. We're now back in open session. And it's an exciting night for us here at the Glenbrooks. Let me bring this a little closer. Thank you, everyone. Really appreciate everyone coming out tonight on this cold as we get into the holiday season and everything. For those that didn't hear the opening comments before, Bruce Dowdy, our president, is away, so I'm presiding over the meeting today. And it's a very exciting meeting. So making sure I got my notes and everything. At this point, I'd like to move to our next agenda item in open meeting, which is recognition of community visitors. And this is a very important part of our meeting that we as a board do listen to everyone. We welcome comments. We use those comments. We may not discuss with the individuals at this point any of those comments. We'll use those later as when appropriate in the agenda. As such, the meeting is conducted to carry out the business of the school district. The public comment is an in-person only and limited to 30 minutes with 2 minutes per person per our board policy in order to ensure that the board is able to address all matters on the agenda this evening. The questions about the process may be directed to me. And just as a reminder, if there's no special protections under any law, everything is recorded. So do be mindful of that when you're making your comments. And so finally, if any speaker that wants to come forward, please share your name and address so we may follow up with you as appropriate. So I believe we have one, and that is Miss Mary Wilter.
Hello, I am Mary Wilcher. I am both a faculty member at Glenbrook South in the mathematics department and a district resident. And I bring this piece of information to the board about the course AP Pre-Calculus. You'll see later today, it's in the board minutes, that's being asked to be approved, but not for next year, but for the following year. Now, this is something that we have gone through several steps looking into this course, trying to get it approved. We were willing to run pilots, other things, even up to this year. It's a brand new course for AP. Last year, the particular course really addresses a group of students who deserve opportunity, who are traditionally underrepresented in AP. The reality is at state schools across the country, pre-calculus is a credit course. And by taking AP and passing the test, which we completely believe we could do, our kids could do that. But in particular, it is aimed at, from AP's approach for their information, although it can be shared with others, it is aimed at, for lack of a better term, I'm going to call them regular or college prep group of kids. So not kids in our honors program, but that class. And it would not work as a prerequisite for something like BC calculus. And we have worked together. We were implored that to do it, we would have to work together. The two schools, the two departments, division heads, et cetera, have all been working together for over a year. We were more than ready. We met every deadline. And we've been told that now, or as you can see in the packet, says that it's not going to happen next year, but it's actually looking to be approved for the following year. And as the board, you're the ones, this decision was made at a high administration level, and you're the ones who I plead with you to look into why this would happen. There's the opportunity for equity access and opportunity for these kids to have an AP credit in mathematics is crucial. And it's really the movement we've been talking about in education is trying to open these doors. We're going to be the only school, and not just in the normal schools we look at, but we're going to be the only, but this vast, it's the fastest growing course by far AP has ever had because it absolutely fits. It fits a need. It offers so much, and we're not going to be there. And there's things that I would ask you to ask about, which is, are we holding this off for these kids because kids who have tons of opportunity in AP, somehow we're worried about a conversation or having to explain to parents or anybody possible things that we would make a decision to hold up for, again, regular students who are in a regular pre-calculus class, which would be able to take it instead, they'll take this, because we're worried about kids in an honors pre-calculus class not taking it or taking it. It's just, even if all of that wants to be discussed, we were ready, everything was in, and we've basically been, it's been left off the opportunity list. And it's frustrating for me. I could say it's frustrating for me for the time I put in, but it's not about me. It's literally about hundreds of children in Glenbrook right now who next year could be earning AP credit. The two departments are ready to go. Everything's in line. Everything met the deadlines. And somehow it's been pushed off for a year. And these kids are going to, we worry about competitiveness. They're going to now be applying to all these schools up against other kids who had similar courses, but they're going to have the AP course and the AP credit. And our kids are going to have to go sit placement tests and other things that are different at every college. They're often very challenging for poor mathematical reasons, and they won't be walking with the credit.
May I ask you to make your final
That's it.
comment?
Please look into why, because this is a travesty of a decision if we really want to reach these kids who don't have these opportunities.
Thank you for sharing with us, Mary. So I don't believe we have any other comments. So with that, I'll move on to our next item, which is, I think, why everyone is here, and very exciting to see everyone here for this, but is a leadership update. And so this is, Dr. Johns, I believe you would like an opportunity to address the board and the community at this time.
Thank you, Mr. Glowacki. Vice President Glowacki, board members, colleagues, and community members, thank you for allowing me a few minutes to share a bit of personal news. A few weeks ago, I shared with the board that I would like to retire from the Glenbrook High School District 225 on June 30th, 2026. It has certainly been a great honor of mine to serve this district and this community, but I do believe it is time for me to step aside and allow others to lead this exceptional district. I'm excited about the leadership plan that we have designed, and I'll allow you, Mr. Glowacki, to share the details of the transition. However, let me emphasize that the board and administration have thoughtfully considered the best way to transfer leadership to the next superintendent, and I am very enthusiastic about the future of this district. In conclusion, I want to thank the board, staff, parents, community members, and my district leadership colleagues for the support, confidence, and encouragement you have shown me in this role. Simply stated, I could have not done this without the people around me. You made me a better leader, and you made the district a much better place. We never lost focus on students, putting each of them at the center of our work, and I am proud of our accomplishments. May the future be the best for the district and each of you. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you, Dr. Johns. And I have a few comments I had prepared as well, too. And I want to take this opportunity to recognize Superintendent Johns for all he has given to this district and the community. This past few years have been some of the most challenging times all educators have faced. These are things that I don't think anybody has imagined that they would have actually ever embarked upon. In preparing my comments for tonight, I learned the difference between thankful and being grateful. Thankfulness is the feeling that comes when you take an action and someone says thank you for such as things as holding a door, or thank you for picking me up at the airport. Gratitude, or being grateful, is much deeper. More long-lasting emotion that comes from reflecting on the things you are thankful for. Being grateful for not fleeting, it stays with us as a powerful memory. So on behalf of the current and past board members, our students, staff, families, and community, I am sincerely grateful for Superintendent Johns and his years of unwavering commitment to our district and community. Yes, we thank you for all that you've done for all of us and continue to do so. And we want you to know that your impact on this district will be felt for many years. Glenbrook High School District 225 is a better place because of your leadership. Thank you. Oh, no, come on. So with that, I would entertain a motion to regarding the retirement.
I have a motion to approve the retirement agreement as discussed in closed session.
Second.
Mr. O'Hara,
Yes.
Ms. Segwin,
Yes.
Mr. Schein,
Yes.
Dr. Steinberg.
Yes.
Ms. Mullenbeck,
Yes.
Mr. Glowacki,
Yes.
6 members voting aye.
So that leaves us with a big question. Who's going to fill those shoes? So with Dr. John's decision to retire and the district's ongoing commitment as leaders in education, it was important to the board that we continue pushing forward while maintaining our high standards and the commitment to excellence. We have focused our attention on selecting an outstanding leader and developing a plan to continue our mission while maintaining the positive momentum for our district. To that end, it gives me great pleasure to announce tonight that Deputy Superintendent Dr. R.J. Gravel has been named as Superintendent Designee and will follow Dr. Johns as the next superintendent for Glenbrook 225. The board and community have come to know Dr. Gravel in his role as our district's deputy superintendent. He's a highly qualified educator who is a proven leader. Having worked with Dr. Gravel over the past 10 years, members of this and previous boards have recognized his strengths and talents while working closely with him on a number of important initiatives. We have known him as an educator of outstanding intellect and character with high standards and expectations for himself and those around him. RJ is dedicated to seeing each and every child thrive in the Glenbrooks. As a board, we are unanimous in our choice of Dr. Gravel as the best person to follow Dr. Johns as our superintendent. We look forward to seeing what you accomplish as our leader. Please join me again and the entire board in congratulating Dr. Gravel on his appointment at Glenbrook 225 as the new superintendent. Now, quickly, while RJ, I know, has some comments to share with us as well, too, wanted to outline a few of the things during this transition, because we are in a unique position where we do get to have the best of both for a period. As Dr. Johns noted in his comment, he intends to retire in June 30th of 2026. So for the next 17 months, the board will oversee a tightly coordinated transition plan to gradually transfer responsibilities from Dr. Johns to Dr. Gravel. Some of the areas of responsibility that will transition to Dr. Gravel immediately include assuming responsibility for district communications, including leadership and support for the new Glenbrook Communications Committee, assume responsibility for the district personnel. In consultation with Dr. Johns, Dr. Gravel will recruit and hire a new director of special education to fill an opening created by Dr. Pearson, who will be retiring this June. Because Dr. Gravel currently also has multiple roles that he watches, these duties will need to be reassigned and managed to make our operations continue to run smoothly for our district. And so there's no interruption to our children and the kids that here. So the board has directed Dr. Gravel to create a revised administrative staffing plan with an initial focus on hiring a school business official for the district. And finally, to prepare for and lead the district's 2025 Glenbrook Day openings. Now, as part of the transition and to maintain that momentum, as I mentioned, Dr. Johns will continue to serve the district in an administrative capacity until June of 2026. The board has assigned the following responsibilities to Dr. Johns: oversee the special education audit and program evaluation, monitor and update the strategic plan progress, working with district teams to ensure alignment with the approved board goals, coach and provide professional development to district administrators, especially those that are new to the district, monitor curriculum projects as various areas of the district curriculum are scheduled for review and update, work with administrators and staff to improve the district's proficiency rankings, ratings, as we will hear later tonight as part of our discussion, report to the Illinois State Board of Education, support Dr. Gravel in all areas of the transition in the role of superintendent and other projects as assigned by the board and Dr. Gravel. This is an exciting time for the district. We will continue to have the opportunity to benefit from the outstanding leadership of both Dr. Johns and Dr. Gravel. The board's decision to name Dr. Gravel as superintendent will allow our district to continue to thrive. So Dr. Gravel, if you'd like to share some comments.
Well, good evening, everyone. Before I get to my prepared remarks, I just want to take an opportunity and thank all of the members of the Board of Education. We've already referenced those current as well as some past board members. And thank you to everyone who is here tonight to be part of this announcement. It truly is humbling to be standing up here. Not gonna lie, I'm quite nervous and I don't normally shake. But it's an exciting time, not only for myself as a professional, but I look forward to continuing the momentum that we've had in this district, truly building upon what we refer to as that legacy of excellence and really looking towards the future and what is in store for us. So with that said, thank you again, Vice President Glowacki and members of the Board of Education. I am truly humbled to accept the position of Glenbrook High School District 225 Superintendent. This role is a tremendous honor and one that I embrace with true enthusiasm and gratitude for the board's confidence in me. The district has been an integral part of my life and my career for many years, and this opportunity to serve our students, staff, families, and community members fills me with immense purpose. Tonight, I want to express my heartfelt thanks to everyone who has supported me along this journey, through moments of both challenge and most certainly celebration. First and foremost, my deepest gratitude goes to my family. My incredible wife, Dr. Melanie Gravel, and our daughter, Gianna, are here with me this evening. Melanie, your intelligence, compassion, and unwavering support have been my guiding light. And Gianna, your kindness, creativity, and curiosity inspire me each and every day. Together, you are my foundation and my greatest source of strength. I also want to take an opportunity, and I'm going to turn around here and recognize the many friendships and partnerships that I've built within this district community. To the teachers, support staff, retired colleagues, former board members who talk longer than I do, and so many others, many whom are here tonight, thank you. Thank you for being here. Thank you for being with me through this journey over the last 10 years. And thank you for making Glenbrook an amazing place. Your dedication to our students, families, and this district is truly remarkable. It's through our collective efforts and the genuine relationships that we've built that Glenbrook High School District 225 has become such a special place. As we begin this new chapter, I look forward to strengthening the connections that we have and forging new ones to build an even brighter future for our students and our families. Through our shared commitment, Glenbrook High School District 225 will continue to thrive as the leading high school district in the state of Illinois, honoring our legacy while driving innovation for the future. As superintendent, I understand that trust is the cornerstone of a successful school district. Building and maintaining that trust will guide my daily efforts as I support students, staff, families, and the community. While strategies and priorities may evolve, my commitment to fostering each and every one of your trust and my focus on collaboration will remain constant. As I bring my remarks to a close, I want to again express how honored and excited I am to serve as your next superintendent. I'm profoundly grateful to the Board of Education for their trust and confidence, to everyone who has supported me along this journey. I am committed to helping our district grow and thrive, providing a high school experience for all students that values excellence across the 4 A's, which include academics, athletics, activities, and the arts. Thank you for this incredible opportunity. I'm excited about all we will achieve together in support of our students. Thank you again. And thank you.
So I guess we have one piece of business official business to make this that wonderful speech commemorated and everything. I'll entertain a motion.
A motion to approve the superintendent contract as discussed in closed session.
Second.
Madam Secretary?
Ms. Segwin,
Yes.
Mr. Schein,
Yes.
Dr. Steinberg,
Yes.
Ms. Mullenbeck,
Yes.
Mr. O'Hara,
Yes.
Mr. Glowacki,
Yes.
6 members voting yes.
Well, congratulations. So with that, we will take a 10-minute, 15-minute break for reception until about 8 o'clock, and then we will come back to board and superintendent reports. So break, please.
No, Deanna and Melanie, I think are good for right now. Just, Mr. Glowacki, so you're aware, we do have a variety of our instructional supervisors available to us for upcoming agenda items.
Okay, so we'll try to keep things moving so they're not up all night with this and everything. So so moving on to item number 6, board and superintendent reports. Dr. Johns.
All right, thank you very much. I have a couple things I want to share, and then we'll turn it over to the schools. I believe we begin with GBN tonight. But I will start off with a couple things. First of all, I want to let the board know, I've talked about it a little bit in the past, the Cook County Paid Time Off Ordinance. We've been working with our Commissioner, Scott Britton, to get an amendment to exempt schools and park districts from this ordinance. Unfortunately, the amendment did not make it out of committee last week. As you'll recall, this amendment would have changed the ordinance so the schools and districts, park districts, would have been held to the state law, but not the more stringent county rule. We did our best. There was a huge effort of superintendents throughout the areas and other school business officials. And certainly this ordinance poses some serious operational challenges for us, certainly at least in the 6 digits in terms of costs that we can anticipate incurring. There is still an option for home rule municipalities such as Glenview and Northbrook to consider a local exemption from this ordinance. In doing so, we would ask the municipalities to revert to the state law. Which again does not include school districts and park districts. We're already in conversations amongst all the school district officials and the park district officials, and we'll start working with our villages right away to see if they're amenable to this change. The next thing I want to talk about is you should have been here yesterday. The Glenbrooks, well, this weekend, the Glenbrooks were hopping. I came last night for the Glenbrook Symphony Orchestra. It was yesterday afternoon, held at GBS. It was the most incredible orchestra performance I've seen in a 35-year career, mostly in high schools. Each time I attend one of their performances, I walk away thinking I've seen the finest that I'd ever seen, only to be proven wrong the next concert. The skill and musicality of our students were on fine display as our students played some of the most incredibly difficult works with both finesse and artistry. I drove home so grateful for the hard work and dedication of our students. The parent organization had an event as well, and it was very vibrant, very supportive of these programs. And if you're a music parent, it's tough to be a parent supporting a musician through the highs and lows and the countless hours of hearing the same note played wrong over and over again. So I want to give a shout out to parents because they put in a lot of sacrifice as well. And we do have tremendous performers. I also want to make special recognition of the 3 directors last night, Aaron Kaplan, Rachel Atlas, and Brian Boron, who really led our students to mastery of pieces that are largely left to orchestras of colleges and beyond. I am grateful for the community that we continue to support the arts in such a way. It was a staggeringly good concert. So as I walking into the concert and walking out, I was reminded of my old high school days as a high school debater, and was able to stick my nose up against the glass and watch the tournament, our speech and debate tournament that was taking place. We had the 49th annual Glenbrooks Speech and Debate Tournament over the weekend. This is the biggest speech and debate tournament hosted by a high school in the country. This year, we hosted about 240 schools and approximately 2,350 people from 31 states and 3 countries. We had 1 from Taiwan and 2 from China. This is Mike Greenstein's 26th Glenbrooks as a student or a coach, and Tara Tate's 23rd Glenbrooks. As a debate coach, it takes a lot out of you. And I ran small tournaments. This is exhausting. They were here late into last night, and we are so fortunate to have both resilient but durable coaches who make sure that our program is always the best. One of the things about the Glenbrooks is we pride ourselves in running both a competitive tournament, but also want to make sure we have the best hospitality as a great as a great service to our national community. Also, it's a fundraiser for our programs, but it is a huge undertaking. Mike and Tara do great work, and it was so fun listening to the kids. Did you break? Did she break? Who's going to the out rounds? These are all coded language that we have in speech and debate. And it was a real thrill for me to hear it again. Finally, I want to talk about Vision 2030 that was indicated and shared at the III conference that we went to at the end of last week and over the weekend. Vision 2030 was an initiative taken on by the Illinois Association of School Administrators, which is the superintendent's group, but it's supported by all the management groups. They were all in attendance as we went through this process. Both Dr. Gravel and I were part of 2030, the Vision 2030 process, and we're very proud of it. It has some big goals. The first is future-focused education that includes future-driven skills, enhancing student safety, attracting and retaining high-quality diverse educators, promoting curriculum instructional flexibility to meet the unique needs of local communities, and also has goals of shared accountability and predictable funding. These are important for the state and will certainly benefit our district. Dr. Gravel and I will be bringing back more language on this and more of an update in the near future, but the materials are now available at the website that you can kind of see on this particular slide. But down the road, we're looking for an endorsement by this board of these goals to show our state legislators that this is what's important in the state of Illinois. If you look back at Vision 2020, the real big initiative that came out of Vision 2020 from 10 years ago, which is evidence-based funding, which really moved our state from one of the worst state support of public education to one of the best, and has made enormous impact across this state. And I always believe that a high tide raises all ships, and it has helped us as well. So more to come on Vision 2030, but it's certainly something I think our state can be proud of, and I'm glad I was involved in it. With that, I will turn it over to our principals. We'll begin tonight with GBN.
Hey, thank you. So we wanted to kick off a couple things from Glenbrook North. We've been having a fun fall. I can't believe that it is nearly Thanksgiving in this first year of being at GBN, and everything has been really wonderful, and every staff and student and parent have been wonderful to work with. So the first thing we wanted to highlight was our Sir Shred Nutcracker, which is now officially on display. You may have been following along. GBN was one of the selected schools to decorate a nutcracker that is now on display at the Donald E. Stevenson Center in Rosemont, and it will soon be moved to its home with our client, the Allstate Arena. Students worked collaboratively to design a nutcracker that captured the essence of the events at the Allstate, and the end product of Sir Shred turned out wonderfully. The client at Allstate shared his feedback with our teacher, Lee Block. I am stoked by it. In my opinion, it is hands down the coolest and most representative of the location. We also wanted to highlight a class project from our CTE program that was highlighted on Patch recently. It was for Stephanie Bassford's fashion design studio class. Stephanie Bassford has traditionally worked with our Glenbrook North preschool on this particular monster hand sewing project, but she has 2 fashion design studio classes this fall, and so she was looking to find another class to work with. So for this project, some students from Willowbrook who are in kindergarten worked with their teacher to come up with what their ideal monster would look like. And then they shared their ideas with the fashion class, and the high school students got to work in their studio to create a customized stuffed creature for each student. And Stephanie Bassford says, since my first year teaching the fashion classes at GBN, I've been working on this project and have had such a wonderful time. I'm always excited about projects where my students do something for others. So that was a neat community activity. For our for athletics, we sent our 5 swimmers to state. Sienna Wilson, Anna Rudametkin, Abigail Kim, Alicia Masjev swam in 5 different events during the weekend and did a great job with their competitive events. There were entries in the 100 freestyle, 100 backstroke, 100 butterfly, and 2 relay teams for the 200 free and 400 free relays. We wanted to say congratulations to Coach Jared Schrader and the entire team on their season. We also celebrated Fall Signing Day on November 13th and wanted to say congrats to Alexis Myers, Reese Annitzberger, Annie Philbin, and Sam Cray-Page, who signed their letters of intent surrounded by family, friends, coaches, and staff. Our athletics winter season is in full swing, and of note, the boys varsity basketball Thanksgiving tournament is currently in progress at GBN right now. And lastly, from athletics, congratulations to our former GBN baseball coach, Dom Savino, who was recently notified that he will be inducted into the Illinois High School Baseball Coaches Association Hall of Fame this January. We also wanted to share just a little bit about Operation Snowball, which had 85 students and 16 staff have another successful Operation Snowball retreat at Camp Edwards in East Troy. Our Snowball staff directors of Kirby Triple, Bill Edison, and Darren Sullivan safely made the snowy trek on last Thursday during the day, along with the team directors Lila Gallison, Kaylin Kelson, Alexi Petridis, Tessa Wallstrom, and Lindy Winkler. Later in the evening, they greeted the rest of the students and student leaders and student participants, as well as the staff members who served as the group leaders throughout the weekend. Students listened to guest speakers, participated in team building activities, and engaged in personal reflection that yielded positive personal growth for all in attendance. They returned home on Saturday and ended their experience with a brief presentation for families. And I wanted to highlight our speech team who had success at a recent District 211 tournament. I always perk up a little bit when I see that we are doing very well against my former school friends. So I will say this, they did a great job. Our JV novice team took top honors in 5 events, with another 6 events earning between 2nd and 3rd place. And our varsity team members took 1st in 2 events, with another 5 events earning 3rd through 6th places. So our building coaches, Sarah Illier, Carrie Gelson, and Amy Ticho, have been doing great work with our students. And I also wanted to say thank you to our Korean Parents Association, who recently sponsored and provided a generous and delicious lunch for our staff in November. It's a highly anticipated lunch and is a wonderful way for staff to experience homemade Korean food and for all of our staff to meet our dedicated families who serve on our Korean Parents Association. We are very thankful. And I wanted to just let you know, if you're looking for upcoming events, please mark your calendars for student written and directed 1 acts on December 5th, our Orchesis dance show, and a whole hurricane relief fundraising effort in support of North Carolina's Owen High School will begin on December 7th with a fundraiser from Sunset Foods, as well as a magic show featuring David Gitchner on December 14th. So tickets are all on sale at curate.com.
Thank you, Ms. Hughes. Over at GBS in academics, GBS just wrapped up its Apprenda testing and orientation days for our incoming Latinx 8th graders, along with those with Spanish language background beyond the classroom. Students from Atia, Springman, Field, and Maple all attended. During these days, the students are given an overview of the Spanish for Heritage Learners program, which leads to advanced placement Spanish language and literature during their junior or senior year. While they come in to take a test to assist them with placement, they also get the opportunity to meet our wonderful world language teachers and learn about the AP programs, as well as key administrators to provide a warm welcome to Glenbrook South. These students learn about opportunities at GBS, our 4 core Titan values, and they have lunch with current senior peer group leaders and junior leaders in the Spanish Heritage Language program. Apprenda placement and orientation activities have been taking place for over 25 years, and it's another way in which we reach out to welcome our incoming students to the GBS community. Also in world languages, I need to give a shout out to our Spanish teacher, Jorge Zamora. He presented at the National American Council on the Teaching of Foreign Language Conference. He was teaching other educators about how AI integration can be used for language instruction. We're incredibly proud of Jorge being a leader in world language education and how he gives back to the profession overall. And finally, again in world languages, last week students from the Glenbrook Academy of International Studies presented insights from their 4-year study of the German language and culture in Discover Deutschland. This event was an opportunity for 8th grade students considering the Academy program to hear firsthand about the students' experiences abroad. I'd like to give a special thanks and shout out to GBS German teacher Lori Howe for her vision and commitment to the German program at Glenbrook South. Tomorrow is also our Thanksgiving tea at GBS. This is one of our most favorite days of the year. It's where our students in family consumer science, fine arts, and horticulture classes demonstrate their skills in a tea to thank their teachers. This is true performance-based learning, where they share their creations, music, and displays that they have mastered thus far this semester with the staff. Over in the arts, we just had the joy last week of Improvaganza. If you've not been able to see this, I strongly recommend. It's a unique performance that has essentially two teams of performers competing against each other to improvise, and they earn points based on the audience applause and interactions. These students are truly hilarious and incredibly quick thinkers. I don't know how they do it. But kudos on a great night of laughs and great entertainment. We're so proud of them. Over in athletics, our girls swim team closed out the end of our fall season with an impressive 5th place for Lila Sue, and freshman Alexis So took 11th place in diving at the IHSA state tournament. Freshman, I would say freshman. We now begin the winter sports season with a variety of Thanksgiving tournaments, and practices are ramping up for other teams. It's looking like it's going to shape up to be a great winter season. And then finally, over in activities, we are finishing the Titan Can Food Drive, otherwise known as Clash of Cans. Last week was the student and faculty basketball game to raise money for the fundraiser. It was stiff competition, but by the end of the night, the students won this year. All around, it's such a fun and exciting evening that not only earned money and collected canned goods for our community, but it was also a great time for teachers and staff to interact in a very different way. And then finally, I have to take a moment to thank the Glenbrook South Buildings and Grounds crew for jumping into action and keep campus cleared and safe during our first unexpectedly heavy snowfall. All year long, we're incredibly grateful for all the things they do to keep our facilities some of the best around. But this was very unexpected, and they jumped into action and got our campus clear and safe for our kids to get to and from school. And we look forward to everything they're going to do for us in the next coming months. We're incredibly grateful for them. Thank you.
Anything further, Dr. Johns?
No, I just want to echo Dr. George's comment. We are so fortunate, and they're not surprised to be ready for a day like we had. So thank you for saying that. That's it. Thank you.
Board members, if you have anything to share, I just want to be mindful of we will have a separate agenda item for some of those that attended the III conference later, so we can talk about that later and everything. But if anybody has other comments besides that? Okay. So moving on then to item number 7, if I believe, or 8, I'm sorry. Going through here, but the consent agenda, is there anything on consent that needs to be considered differently, pulled off of consent?
Nope, nothing has changed. We're ready to go.
So I'll entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Madam Secretary?
Ms. Mullenbeck,
Yes.
Mr. O'Hara,
Yes.
Ms. Segwin,
Yes.
Mr. Schein,
Yes.
Dr. Steinberg,
Yes.
Mr. Glowacki,
Yes.
6 members voting yes.
Wonderful. All right, so the next few items that are on our agenda are discussion items. The first one is 9.1 dashboard report with Illinois regarding the Illinois school report. And that is Mr. Breitag and Dr. Idrizi, if you may.
Good evening. Next, we're going to hear is our dashboard report, which we have heard annually Mr. Breitag doing. And it achieves a compliance with the release of the Illinois School Report Card as it is required. But it also highlights the action we have taken based on the data over the past year. And it also highlights action we are going to take based on the newest data we have received. What is new this year is that in the section 3, we have tied it to strategic plan, looking forward, going into the future, what action we are taking. Please know that this is report for informational purposes only, and no action needs to be taken tonight.
Well, good evening. I know this is my favorite presentation of the year to all of you, where I get to share all the data with you. But in the spirit of keeping it tight and concise, I'm going to share 2 highlights for all of you, and then 2 areas that we're going to put some energy and focus into. So first and foremost, I'm really proud to identify the progress we've made in student enrollment in advanced courses. So the last 4 years, it's been a focal point, especially dual credit courses. How do we increase student access, student enrollment? And it's a pleasure to show you from 2021 until now, we've gone from 230 students district-wide enrolled in a dual credit course to almost 1,000. So that is tremendous progress. It's due in part to significant efforts in the academic departments, talking through what courses could qualify for dual credit and really putting the professional development forward. At the same time, advanced placement enrollment has remained stable. That's an important piece because sometimes we start to find students will leave an advanced placement course to take a dual credit. So we've been striking a nice balance there. So we plan to continue expanding our dual credit programs and to look at our advanced placement courses in the front end of our years with our students. Right now, you can see our senior year is really top heavy in that data, but it gets less and less as you go towards the freshman year. Also exciting, our sense of well-being data. It has trended up since we started, where it's now at 69%. That is 99th percentile nationally. That means we're doing really, really, really well in that area. Now, it makes you wonder if only 69% of students are feeling a complete sense of well-being, and that's in the 99th percentile. So for us, we know we still have work to do. We want to continue to see that number go up. And each year we're surprised. We hit and we go, we're 99th percentile. Can we really go up more? And we just slowly keep climbing that ladder. Important to note, sense of belonging is not, we don't ask the students, do you have a sense of belonging? There are 9 different ways we ask that same question to come up with the calibration, from trusted adults, relationships, sense of community, to really get at this idea of well-being and sense of belonging. So again, we're going to continue to focus here. This remains an important goal, both identified in the strategic initiatives and strategic plan, but also just as something we really have found to be critical for our students. Now, what does that mean for areas of improvement? This is one that over the last 2 years, I've said we're monitoring, which is growth mindset. We have traditionally been in the 30th percentile. By far, if you look at all the social emotional skills measured, growth mindset has been the lowest for us. This year, we saw a significant decrease, a statistically significant drop that has put us in the 10th percentile for students identifying, do I have the skills of growth mindset? Again, we don't ask them, do you have growth mindset? We ask them a number of questions. There are actually 7 that unpack the idea of growth mindset. Definition-wise, really simple. A person believes they have the potential to get better. That's what growth mindset is. I can get better. Through work and persistence, I can get better. So one thing to note, Panorama, our survey instrument, was adjusted. It was recalibrated. So we want to track to see, did that cause the dip? But regardless, we've seen this trend that it's been 30th percentile or lower. So we feel it's time to really put some targeted efforts there. Last but not least, this is our climate survey participation rate. If we went back to 2021, we were always in around the 80% of our students were participating. That was a really healthy number. What we have found as the years have gone by, that has trended downward. Last year, we were 27% below the state average. The impact on that being just above 50% was a significant challenge to our report card designation. So in the memo, I noted that both schools were noted as commendable, and they were just a couple points, 2 to 3 points away from exemplary. When we look at our participation rate, that impacted both schools over 4 points. So if we had remained consistent with our 2021 number, we would both be, I would argue, exemplary if my math is accurate. So all other metrics went up, but our participation rate went down. So this is actually not a problem that will take a lot of effort. It just takes time. So we are going to move to back to the 5 essentials. That launches usually at the end of January. We do not have the official dates right now from the state. Once we have that, we will go back to what we used in 2021 and before to really have targeted communication to our students, a process that's articulated well in advance to families of the importance of this and when we're going to actually administer this. Case in point, our SEL survey, it was at 90% participation rate in September. So we know how to communicate this, we know how to put this forward, and we're going to implement that, and we should see that number go up. So those are the 2 points of excitement and 2 points that we're really targeting. A lot of data was shared with you, so I will pause there.
Thank you. I was going to say, I'll go around the board. I'll start with Ms. Sequin if you have any questions for the team.
Just a question on the last slide. Is
Mhm.
that the climate survey participation rate? If you can remind me, does that include staff as well as families?
So for this graph here is representing student participation rate, so which is what is used on the school report card.
Okay, so it's only, that is
Correct.
only students.
But we, from a continuous improvement challenge using the data, we want our staff participation rate high as well. These are important measurements that we need.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Dr. Steinberg?
Yeah, just a few questions. Looking back to your first slide on dual credit versus AP, I'm not going to question the numbers. I just want to know from both sides, I mean, what are the financials for this in terms of cost for when comparing one to the other, right? You were talking about normally you get more dual credit and less A&P as dual credit grows. Is this because there's a financial impact on the students because they may have to pay A&P? Do we have agreement with the community college districts where they do dual credit, but they don't pay for the credit?
Yeah,
what's the
we're
standard?
primarily tied to Oakton.
Yeah.
And I think the increase here is more communication to families about the benefits of dual credit, that it is cheaper than advanced placement, but really what it's about is the opportunity to gain credit through dual credit is almost guaranteed compared to AP, which is you could take the course and then take the test, hit a 3, maybe even a 4 and not get the credit. Where in partnership with Oakton, you complete the course successfully, you have credit.
And as a follow-up, how these two compute on your GPA on the 4, 4.5, 5?
So you have this wonderful packet in front of you. And one of the pieces that we were able to really work through is if there's a dual credit or advanced placement that qualifies as advanced academic courses, that qualifies as a 5.0 GPA. We have created consistency in that arena in all of our classes with those designations. Previously, that had not been the case. It could range from a 4 or a 5. Advanced placement, we're always receiving the 5, but there was not consistency in dual credit. Based upon that and the work we're moving forward, we're now consistent.
That's great.
So,
Only one.
a follow-up question to that one. So the dual credit, that's going forward, that they'll be at 5s. Anybody in the dual credit programs currently may or may not still be.
Correct,
Just
correct.
want to make sure that was clarified.
Yes, thank you for that clarification.
This, I don't expect the answer for this one, so it's a question just for you to
I'll
ponder,
turn my
on,
mic off.
both of you to think of. But when looking at growth mindset, I agree with you, and maybe the change on the way we're assessing it may have changed that scale. But I wonder the way our schools are on a competitive district, and a district where everybody strives for excellence, if this may have an impact on the growth mindset, because I'm either a AP student or I'm either a G student, and we always get parents coming here bringing their issues about placement at the freshman level, and if there's something structural there that doesn't have to do with our students per se, but as our students as a group, where if I start at certain point, I don't feel so that I have the possibilities because I will never get to, even though I should, I will never get to AP courses because I started in G level or I started in different level. So I know we have different ways of assessing this, but if that's the case, it may not be that our students don't have the growth mindset, but they walk into a system that doesn't even allow them to think about growth mindset because they have a ceiling, structural ceiling imposing.
I don't know if it's tied to our structure based, if you could explain the questions that are, you asked for the growth mindset.
No,
'cause
I'm saying,
my understanding of the question and what they use on this are, do I feel I can learn? Can I take the initiative to go do something? So it doesn't really tie.
oh, there are tons of studies that says if you are put with different people, normally you tend to grow. But if you are shown that, hey, you are hanging with these people in the classroom versus the other people that are in the other classroom, that has an impact on your thinking that I can grow. Because I can grow as long as I fit within this classroom. I would never be able to move to the next one. That's what.
Yeah, I was gonna say, Brian, if you wouldn't mind just answer and like
Sure.
what the questions are that are actually being asked too.
It's a multifaceted question. In order for us to address this, there are a lot of districts wrestling with this. This is part of why we are partnering with the Center for Academic and Social Emotional Learning to have them assist us with this. This is a key skill. We know that. We know when you really look at the multifaceted problem, you have a system that needs to be looked at. You have years of mindset development that has occurred beforehand. And then you have family social dynamics. So for us, it's really about understanding what is in our control, locus of control, and how we can work through that. There are perceptions that need to be talked through. Accelerated Placement Act is one of those. As we move forward with this is another reason why we're really targeting. We are starting to open access. We want students to have faith and trust that they can do this. And we're building the support system to help them get there.
Thank you. And just to clarify, I'm not questioning the questions. What I'm saying is that we may doing a big effort, but there may be things that we are not paying attention to that may slow down our effort that are out of the individual part of it. I think you got the question. I'm not questioning the system per se. Thank you. I'm good.
Mr. Schein?
So we were this weekend at the Triple I conference, and I went to a session that spoke to dual credit. And it was led by the superintendent of 214 and a couple of his staff. But one thing I took away, which I found interesting, and I wonder if then we're looking at this, is they're partnered with multiple Oaktons. So they work with Harper, work with Triton, Eastern Illinois University. So they had a bunch of partners. And I asked about that, and he said, well, certain schools are good at certain things and have certain offerings. He said, but it was sort of like, oh, it's just so hard to engage and get them, along this path. Everybody's kind of holding their turf. And so I'm curious, are we looking at, or does Oakton offer everything we need?
So our philosophy is we start with Oakton. It's local. These are challenging relationships that have to be developed. So as the superintendent was talking, multiple districts make that even more challenging. So we start with Oakton. Sometimes Oakton doesn't have that offering. Then we will start to expand out from there. One of the things that we have found, though, is when you bring an idea to Oakton, they have a tendency to go, hey, I think we can do that. Let's work through that together. That's the beauty of that partnership.
So you mentioned, I think it was 900 something students, 1,000 give or take.
Correct.
Roughly how many course offerings does that encompass?
Yeah, I'd have to go back and look at our number. I believe after this weekend, we'll be in the 20s.
How many AP?
Or not after this weekend, I'm sorry. After, if you approve these, tonight we'll be in the 20s.
And how many APs do we offer?
Oh, gosh, I should know that off the top of my head. I do
Ballpark.
not.
Well, that changes now too.
Yeah, I'll have to look at that and give you an idea, an exact number. Someone could look it up on the report card. Yeah. Right. Yeah, right. I might have it on page 3.
Comment. I really like how clear this is. You know what's given at which school. I mean, the level of consistency, I mean, I can't imagine what it took to to get to this point. Because
There are
it's-
wonderful people
others
online.
have tried and failed.
Yes.
Well, we won't steal all the thunder and everything. We're going to get to this one
Yes.
next. And Ms. Mullenbeck.
I guess, a comment and a
Oh,
question.
Skip, did you have any? I'm sorry. Okay, sorry about that.
First, on the growth mindset piece,
Mhm.
I'm glad you mentioned, this is my comment, the APA, because as you were discussing that, I was thinking to myself, well, I wonder if we can really leverage what's happening with the APA to try to get kids to see that this is a real opportunity for them. And I hope that as that's rolled out and presented to students and families for them to do their planning for their time at the Glenbrooks, that they're seeing that this is going to give a cohort that perhaps before didn't really have a place to stretch to. Now they really will. And so that opens up this avenue that I hope encourages and empowers those students in particular to feel like, they can do something different and bigger than what they were doing before. The second thing I had to ask about was actually a question, and now I seem to have lost it. Hang on just a second. I'm sorry. This was under section 3 of the memo you circulated, data of note. And I saw that we see in the Glenbrooks that there is a greater performance gap or higher than the state average for our low income and non-low income students. And it's not enormous, but it's significant.
Mhm.
And I guess my question is, I believe that this has been an issue for some time. Are we making progress in closing that gap? And what are we going to be doing to address that?
Yeah. So there's a few things associated with that. Some of that data is based upon the N number. So that range, we have to take and look at the trend data. The other aspects associated with that, we do believe our work for accelerated placement and the curriculum work that we've been talking through, those are targeted efforts at that. There's a lot of work still to be done. What we spend a lot of time doing is looking at, and you have this in your data, the scatter plots, which really tell us, are we seeing a point in time data or are we seeing a trend? And we've remained consistently high in, if not the top in both schools when looking at comparables. That being said, we have work to do. There's no question. And I think access is a big one. I'm not hanging everything on Accelerated Placement Act, but I do think that starts opening doors. And we have curriculum work to look at to see how do we understand what our students are doing from point A to point B to point C. The shift from SAT to ACT is going to put us in a little bit of a position where our data is going to be off because we're moving to a new system. However, that is why we went with the pre-ACT 8. Now we have fall 8th grade data, spring freshman data, and we can start to really track those trends. So.
Any additional questions? I'm sorry. Make sure to ask Mr. O'Hare.
Yeah, real quick. I think that growth number is concerning, obviously, the 10%. And especially for your kids, you don't want them to be limited when they're 14 years old and suddenly they're like, they feel they can't grow. That's kind of a very upsetting statistic there. And I guess something Marcelo said made a lot of sense. Do you know, and you might not know off the top of your head, but the movement in the tracks that we have, how often do kids actually change tracks?
Yeah, I think what we find is it isn't as frequent as we would seem to believe. And a lot of that has to do with we have systemically looked at differentiation by our quote unquote sequences and our structures, not in terms of the diagonal movement. Some departments have really built this curriculum alignment where it allows for what we call horizontal and vertical movement, which leads to just add the diagonal movement. But that is tied to the curriculum mapping work that we've been talking about. In order to make those jumps, you have to really understand your full sequences and what skill continuum would allow students to jump across.
Okay, so that could be something we could do to improve it. Because I think Marcelo
Correct.
makes a great
Correct.
point. Like if you don't see anybody moving,
Correct.
even if it is allowed to move, you never see it, or I wonder, how do we compare, do other high achieving high schools, because we're a high achieving high school,
Yes.
have a similar issue in their percentages? In their that growth percentage number? Does that make sense?
Correct. So we are unable to say, give us the identical comparatives. What we do have is our population size, our free and reduced lunch
That would
population.
get you pretty
And,
close.
and it gives us a pretty good, and that is what's placing us in this 10 to 20th percentile.
So like someone like Stevenson or New Trier might have the same issue?
Could be.
And so part of it could be like you're talking about, you're coming up in the system. You say, what we can focus on. And if you've been, I play ice hockey. If I get out on the ice to play ice hockey and there's a bunch of pros out there, I feel really bad about myself.
Correct.
So if you go into our class and suddenly you're there with these kids who are national merit and you're not, you could feel that too. So
Correct. And part of our work, because obviously privacy of data with our SEL benchmark, we're not allowed to say this school or that school. But with our partnership with Castle, and is that this is one of our areas of focus with them, what schools have faced this and what have they done that have similar backgrounds to our two schools. And that's the work they're able to bring forward to us and say, here are schools that have wrestled with this and have seen a significant success ratio.
okay, thank you. I'm glad you guys are concerned about it as
Yes.
well. Yeah. And I guess the dual AP, your numbers, so like 2,700 students or 2,700 classes. Do you know the percent of the students who did this? Because it isn't half our students who are in both AP and dual. Like my daughter took a
Correct.
lot of AP classes and my son took, shall we say, less. And so it seems like some of those would be the same kids, right?
Correct. Correct. The data, the way they break that down on that particular link, a student that took an AP class counts as one. That same student would count as one for a dual credit.
So one of those
Correct.
students could be five.
Absolutely.
Could be one student
Correct.
because they took five. Okay.
Correct.
Okay, that makes sense. No, and the climate survey rate, can we just sit them down and make them do it? I mean, like it seems like those are the ones that we're, have control of more so, shall we say?
I think we have a model in place with our SEL benchmark that has received pretty much over 80% every time we've done it, that we will be putting in place to make sure that happens.
Thank you. Okay, that's it.
Pete, can I
Go ahead,
something
Dr. Steinberg.
To add to Matt's point, which is great, I didn't think about that. Is there any way that we can get that kind of report, but by students instead of by courses? If I
Say-
understood correctly, maybe I misunderstood, but when it says,
I didn't.
Dr. Steinberg, maybe thinking about a metric that says the number of students that took one or more AP or dual
yeah,
credit classes,
yeah.
just
Yeah, and I
write it
don't know
down.
if there,
Yeah.
well, yeah.
If there is a
know,
pattern there that we see, yes. No, thank you, everyone. And so I just had, I guess, a follow-up question on the growth mindset. And this is why I was interested in what the questions were that are used for the growth mindset. Because our district is watching one child go off to school, not realizing just how well prepared he was for school and everything until he got into a different dimension. So a lot of our kids don't think they have to grow. They think they're doing well. So we've got a lot of honor kids, and as one of them, and as an example to use, that think they've achieved it all. Oh, you can't teach me another thing. We've all had teenagers. And so that's what I'm curious about. Can you tell what questions they do use for the growth mindset?
Sure. There's two types. There's academic and social emotional, which includes behavior. And both of those groups ask questions around the idea of, if you have a setback, can you get better from that? how do you manage when you're looking at a long-term project? What if you do poorly on an exam? Is that a reflection on you and so that's the breakdown of the academics.
So it's looking very much less on the paths and everything, but looking at kind of your resilience.
Yep, exactly.
In
So
terms
what
of-
we call academic tenacity
Yep.
is kind of the broader construct there. But it is really trying to look at how do they manage setbacks? And then there are a couple direct questions. Can you get better? Have you reached your peak academically? That is the number where you start going, to your point, where
Right.
you're like, if you're a sophomore feeling you've reached your peak academically.
And that's where for some institutions, I've seen some of the schools you were asking about, they're introducing other kind of outside seminars and things
Yep.
where children are starting to, and we did a little bit of this where we do a joint program with Oakton. Oh, well, let's get the STEM kids over there and they start seeing what you do with these careers and they realize, hold on, there is more. We're promoting their natural curiosity, their initiative to go to the library and read up on something that has not been assigned to them and everything. So if the group can, I guess, come back and whatever initiatives we've got going on that, I think that may help elevate these scores as well, too.
Yeah, I do think to your point, one of the areas that has real potential is our work with career, post-secondary success, college and career readiness, the work-based learning, so internships, seeing what's out there, working with mentors. That is an area that is untapped right now, in my opinion, and I think district-wide. You can see it in our strategic work that we are going to put some focus on over the next 4 years, which I think really could open the door to this.
So that'd be interesting to see how those
Yep.
charts. And the other question, yes,
If I can add to your point,
Yes.
I was reading an article the other day. Growth is associated with academic performance, but we have 4 A's, and we being in general society, not the Glenbrooks, we tend to only associate mind growth set and everything else on how do I do in my tests or how much advanced courses I can take. While we offer 3 other set of services that can also tap into the idea of growth, mind of growing and growing mindset. So maybe that's something to think about it as well. Your point is really good, but they are spending time in school doing other things that they are not associating that this is part of their growth, be it a sport, being an art, being an activity. So I don't know if these are reflected on the questions, but something that we may be able to look into.
thank you. And the other one, looking at the stats on, if you could advance to, I guess you referenced the low income where took a dip there in comparison and everything to our peers and everything, as our colleague mentioned and everything. I recall a few years back, we did have some more details about, I think, some unique characteristics and correlations to that, where we have a much more transient community that some of those linked into it as well too, where they were here for a year and then we have another group. So by the time we start working with these students and everything, that changes and impacts. What other correlations do you have with this data at this point, or what can you pull up?
Yeah, I think it's a real challenge. What you're bringing forward was the N number. Oftentimes, what's tested, we might be looking at someone that's been here for 2 months. But broader than that is we always look at what is happening across their 4-year spectrum of their academic work. And when we have that ability to say, here they are as a junior, what have we controlled from essentially their transition to us forward, we see pretty significant growth. We need to monitor that more. We need to put more energy into that, especially for students that might traditionally haven't qualified for acceleration or honors, to ensure that their growth is where it needs to be. That's the direct target at this point.
Okay, because I know the other,
But-
is also English as a second language. Is that creating some barriers to this as well too? And
Not necessarily.
Okay.
Not necessarily.
thank you.
Mhm.
Well, if you have any additional questions for the team, please feel free to forward them to Dr. Johns and he'll get them to them. So moving on then to the next item, which I guess is Mr. Breetag and Dr. Andruzzi, curricular change proposals and this lovely, lovely course guide. Yay.
So it's got to get to his head, guys. You can't applaud him before he's introduced it and walked you through it. We're going to have to make him work for that applause now. Okay. And he has worked. And he has worked. We're very proud of this, and it is an accomplishment that I think someone has said it's been tried for many, many years, and it hasn't been successful in the past. And we are very proud of this effort and grateful, Ryan, for your leadership to bring this to fruition. And I'm sure Ryan will echo this point. There's a lot of work that went through to make this happen, and it wasn't easy. Ryan calculates that well over 200 hours of meetings went into the creation of this document. This isn't 200 workforce hours. This is 200 hours of meetings where there would be maybe a dozen or more people working on this. And that doesn't count Ryan gets caught everywhere he goes. Someone grabs him for some insight or something like that. This doesn't count the little sidebar conversations or the associate principals or ISs having to get together to work on something. Those were the more formal meetings. And it hasn't been easy. We have great pride, and we've had great pride in this district with each school being proud of their programs, their classes, their approach, and coming together for an agreement was not easy. There had to be some sacrifice, there had to be collaboration, there had to be a little give and take, and Ryan and the other leaders in this process helped coach people and support them through that analysis and those changes. So I want to thank everyone, the ISs that were involved in the leadership, the associate principals who are here today as well, Ryan, even the Ed Services Department that supported Ryan through this process. There's a lot of people that deserve our gratitude for getting us to this point. And we know that the teachers have worked hard and will continue to work hard to make all this come to fruition. But I think what this represents for our families is clarity in our academic program that we've longed for many years. And it also enables us to launch forward on other work down the road. So now, Ryan, I think you can come to the podium and earn our gratitude and applause.
All right. I would love to take credit, but in the spirit of growth mindset, you have a tremendous amount of folks on Zoom right now who quite honestly, made this an amazing 2 years of work. Yes, it was challenging. Yes, it was hard, but the thoughtfulness that came from our ISs and their teams made this actually, it revitalized my belief in curriculum and instruction to see that kind of work and dedication. So a big thank you. The applause should go to all those folks sitting on the call right now who really put in the work with them across Willow Road and with their team. So thank you to all the ISs and the APs for their work. Yeah, there you go. Actually, Bob Pieper was here and he was in the back reading one of these and he asked if he could take one. So I said I would buy him one and give him because he's like, that was a year of my life. So with that, what you do have in front of you is our course guide. So I think Dr. John said it all, but there's a lot of really exciting pieces in here. I will tell you, it is still in draft mode. Once we add the new courses, we'll clean up some of the locations of things, but we are really excited. There's a few things I want to point out. Number one was every course but 13 were touched. I'm going to say that again. 100 plus pages. Every course was touched to some degree, but 13. Now, blessed were those 13 that went through a recent new course proposal process. So if you're wondering, which 13, Ryan? There's your answer. Through the work of Dr. Solis and Mr. Muir, we were ahead of that game to make sure we didn't have to go back to those courses. The other thing about this is you'll notice at the start of every department, there's a consistent statement about what they believe. It is this idea of an ambitious target, what they believe, where they want to go. That was one of the most enjoyable experiences where I'm blessed to have been in this district for almost 20 years. We took all the resources we had in every department and we did full scans of all their historical pieces and provided them a summary for them to work through and really digest. So just tremendous work from a variety of sources. So what that does yield is a change in how we propose courses. So there's an excitement here that we have a new application for curricular change process. That is going to have road bumps that you're going to see when new courses come through, because there is a deeper, richer process to ensure that alignment stays in place, that we're asking questions both at a department, building, and district level, so that as courses get approved, they're really understood about the value for the gaps that may exist, how we're moving forward with larger initiatives, and ensuring that there's equity and alignment across both buildings. So that will come with a change for our folks who are experiencing that kind of process for the first time this year. But as they go through what we did, we changed this process of how they propose. They also have to include a syllabus, a common syllabus, and a curriculum map that shows what they're actually moving forward towards. If they have honors, they include honors expectations. So department, building, and district leadership team, we're reviewing all of that before it gets to you. Last but not least, we move this timeline up so that there's a better sequence. Typically in September is when we will be doing our curriculum improvement process, which will then lead directly to new courses, which will lead directly to new textbooks, new materials. So you'll see a process go right through that. So this year there was a truncated timeline, which did yield some pauses on some courses, some other things that we needed to do to ensure that we met the right direction of all this 2 years worth of work. With that, this year, we have 5 new courses and 3 honors designations. So important to point out, the first 2 on that list are dual credit courses. You have English Composition 101. A number of you have asked me about that. Is that a freshman course? That is a freshman in college course. So it does look different than our typical titles, and that's because we adopt the title from Oakton. Number 2, Introduction to Education, a wonderful opportunity for our students that might have an interest in becoming an educator, that they can begin that process. Also, we have 3 other courses. You heard about one early on, AP Pre-Calc. And then we have 3 honors designations coming forward. This is a change in our protocols that we wanted to be more transparent when a course changed its honors designation, so that you were aware. Most important to that is the CTE course. This was a course that has never had honors. It's what you may recall incubator, or you may have heard about business incubator. We did a regional analysis. Anytime we have a concern about a course or we have disagreements, we begin a local to regional analyses of what others are doing. We found that we are the only district that we could really find that offers a robust incubator program that doesn't offer honors credit. We are rectifying that wrong for the start of the 25-26. Those are the types of things you will see brought forward in the future. So with that, all of these ISs are available for questions, as are our APs. So we'll turn it over.
Before I turn over to the board members, there was a question that came during our open public comments and everything. So I figured since we all probably will ask it in some version or another, I'll get it out there. It was regarding the AP calculus, pre-calculus class, and the reasoning behind the 26-27 adoption and the College Board review process.
Sure.
Which I understand that is a extensive process as well too, if you could go into that a little bit.
Sure. So the AP Pre-Cal was proposed by both buildings. The buildings reviewed it and had a number of concerns that they felt needed to be addressed. They brought those concerns to our district level team, which consists of directors and your building APs. They shared those concerns, wanted to make sure we understood those and offered any guidance. We understood their concerns, agreed with their concerns, and also gave suggestions on what to do for next steps. Those next steps were shared with the instructional supervisors about how we could move forward with that. As they reviewed those changes, they made the determination that it was best that we hold for another year to work through those. As I noted, when we do find that there's some disagreements about a proposed course, a lot of times we do a review of other schools that may be a little bit ahead of us. So some of those schools we looked at, this course was being proposed at the senior only level and in only one sequence. We asked about why only that sequence. Was there other opportunities to expand access outside of the senior year only? Because as we reviewed other schools, there's access level at the 10th, 11th, and 12th grade. And there are 2 different types of AP pre-calc, often across different tracks or sequences. So for us, we raised those questions. We also had concerns raised from our student services teams about how to articulate that an AP course was lower than an enriched honors course, and how would that be perceived by families. That's not the sole reason for any, we can work through a number of factors, but in compilation of all of those, there were enough concerns laid out. The ISs understood those and felt it best to hold for another year. We did put forward that if they felt there was enough time, we could look at a 25, 26 or a 26, 27 adoption. It was determined that 26, 27 was the better direction. And that's why you see it the way it is.
Can you elaborate on the College Board review process? How long does that take and must that be initiated?
So the College Board has to have the syllabi reviewed and structured by the middle of January. That's the date that they've laid out for us in order to have it ready for approval. Now, you can expand that. There's always
So
exceptions.
this January for
Correct.
next fall?
Correct. If we were to go forward. It's part of this is that review could yield some, because you would propose our syllabi, our curriculum maps. That could tell us it's approved or it's not. And there's a feeling that there just wouldn't be enough time if it was denied that they could look at expanding access. We considered a pilot. In the spirit of alignment and equity of access, to pilot at one school and not the other posed potential concerns, especially in the spirit of all the work that was done here as something as positive as an AP pre-calc. To only offer that at one building seemed a potential misstep during this time.
Okay, appreciate that.
Yes.
Ms. Mullenbeck.
I've caught glimpses of this work on various calls that we've been on over time, little sneak peeks. And it's really a fantastic work product. So I applaud everyone who put in all those hours of work plus 200 hours of meetings, which counts as at least, 1,000 hours of work, because meetings are harder than just working. I do think that it's so easy to read. It's just flipping through it, I do think that as you work on completing it or finalizing it, having all the flowcharts in one place as opposed to scattered throughout might be just a helpful for students and parents as they're going through it. I know that just looking at the timeline that you have, that we're in phase 2 right now, is that right?
We just wrapped up phase 2.
Phase 2,
correct.
and I see that we have very, very shortly in December, phase 3.
Yes.
So what exactly is that going to entail that's different than having this?
Sure. So phase 1 was this, essentially making sure full course guide alignment. Phase 2 was before we took any other steps that could perhaps be a false step, we did a curriculum inventory or curriculum audit where we asked each IS to list out their courses, share, do you have a syllabus? Do you have a curriculum map? What we found is almost every class has a syllabus. However, they vary in terms of what's inside those. So phase 3 will bring forward a common syllabi that people can use as a template. It will look at curriculum mapping. So what you may hear is backwards design, curriculum map, UBD. It's all the same language, which basically says start with the end in mind and work backwards. So starting in December, we will begin that work with Mr. McTeague or Dr. McTeague, who will work us through a process of making sure all of our instructional leaders understand that curriculum mapping process. And then they will begin their work with their teams, their curricular teams. We, as part of the APA, thought it best, instead of stopping all of our good work and saying pivot over here, let's embed curriculum map, syllabus work, and APA into a phased-in approach. So throughout this winter, spring, and into the summer, we will be doing curriculum mapping work as part of APA implementation with our 9th grade teams, and then expanding that year after year.
And do you anticipate that that work will push changes through this? And how is that going to be?
Yeah,
accounted for?
I don't think so. I think it truly is now let's get in depth with that. Let's start looking at how we can have the impacts, the things we talked about in our dashboard tonight. What's happening in our 9th grade English 1 CCR versus our English 1 accelerated honors? What would it mean for a student to move if by the time they're a junior, could they make that leap? How do we get them there? Those are very rich conversations, but it starts with really knowing what exactly are the expectations in each of these courses and what's the skills continuum available to us.
Any other additional questions? Mr. O'Hare.
Yeah, so this document, it's going to be on the website at some point, and searchable maybe?
So you'll actually searchable. It will be, there'll be a print PDF, and then in School Links, the course guide is embedded inside there. So everything you see in here is duplicated and replicated directly in the School Links. So families have multiple points of entry. All of the visuals that you have align with how students select courses.
Nice.
So the language that families, if you work better off paper, open it up and work there. If you'd rather be digital, it's there. Complete consistency. Our system of truth will forever be working through the School Link system and then pushing that information into our other facets.
Okay, so yeah, I was going to ask about School Links. I
Yep.
love that you guys are linking that. And then this will then be kind of a living document, or is it going to be like, how often are we going to update it? Is it once a year, and do you have a date where you're thinking about it?
Yeah, once a year. So it'll be part of this annual process that we will go through. So as soon as we're done with this was a unique
This is the
process
hardest
this
time,
year.
yes, getting
This
it
will
all
be the,
together.
yep.
I hope there's got some good plot development in here.
Yes.
I'm reading it tonight, and I don't want to fall asleep.
Section 1, it's riveting.
There you go.
As you do work through it, you'll find that in the summer, we'll end the year and start the year with the ISs.
Okay.
So that they'll have more time to tinker with this. But each year at this time, we'll have a new version ready to go, and it will move to a 26, 27.
It's beautiful, my friend. It's
Yes.
beautiful. Thank you.
Ms. Sequin.
This may be some of a technical question, but I know as part of the like changes and designations of the that now they're coming into play. Are the names and the numbers of the courses changing? So, because I hear, my kids talk all about, this 363 and this and all the jargon and everything else that they use, right? Are those things going to change? Because I'm just saying that's something that's familiar to the students and the families. So are they going to be kind of relearning those?
So if you would turn to page 3,
Okay.
you will find for the first time we are publishing our course numbers so that you can actually understand what are bottom of page 3. You will see, yes, you will see actually why we call certain things WOH, why we call things ENG. So to your direct question, we are changing all the course codes. So and here is why. It's a question that's really important for us to understand. North and South have had different numbers. So we've had double the course codes. We no longer have that. North and South have the same course code. Dr. Georges, that is not a painful look.
this is
That is
my-
a look of happiness.
Yes. Well, this is my practical side of me, but this is what families and students talk about all the time.
So there will be
So-
a change. And
Okay.
there will be change management as part of that. So
Okay.
we are trying deeply our inside of school links, inside of our documents. This is a area that we know is a significant change. They know, oh, I'm in English 263.
Yeah.
Well, you might have been in English 263G, studies, all these different words that are now standardized under one course code, one name.
Okay.
So it is a change. The time was right. There's probably never a good time to change course codes, but
Mhm.
in the adoption of this and the adoption of school links, we didn't want to have the same course title and say North has this code, off campus has this code, South has this code.
Yeah.
So,
Okay.
and as you can imagine, it was a lot easier to step back and create our own versus say, North, you get this one, South, you get that one,
Mhm.
and just create
Makes
new ones.
sense.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you for
It's a
that.
beau-
Any,
Yeah,
addi-
and awesome. I have really great work on this. This
Thank you.
is like great. Thank you.
any additional questions? Dr. Steinberg?
Thank you. I'll go back first to what Sandy said earlier. We clap, but I don't think we clap enough because you came here, I don't know how many months ago, explaining the whole process, and you listen to the process, and I think this is going to take forever, and you need to get the buy-in from everybody. And it's not just the ISs or the APs that are here, but everybody who spent even an hour to try to figure out how to make this work deserves our congratulations, because it's not, I don't know, I shouldn't say this because I'm not attending every other board meeting from other districts, but it's not every day that the district goes into schools and says, we're going to tackle the entire curriculum, every single course, and you earn it. I mean, everybody earned it, and the people who are in leadership earn it as well, because being a faculty at a different level, it's not always easy to get everybody on the same, team, even if you are part of the team. So huge congratulations. And as everybody says, to make it in a way that is understandable, that's another, layer of thankfulness from my end. Just two quick comments. There could be questions at the same time. You mentioned something when you were asked about the AP pre-calculus, and let me think into something else. For some people, AP it's the end means, right? So they see as that course as this is my college credit course, or one of my 3 college credit courses. But as education is becoming more fluent between the first level of college and high schools, we see many people who want to take as many AP courses as they can. So maybe I'm reacting to the way you presented it, but maybe teachers should be thinking about this AP course is not just for seniors or the last level, because maybe we can build a sequence of 2 AP courses or 3 AP courses that will save families a lot of money when the children go to college. So as I say, it's not a question, it's just a comment piggybacking on your comment. On the flip side, and leaving this also, is curriculum is such a tricky thing, because if you don't get it in time, you have to wait an entire year to get it again. And sometimes you put the time and you feel what's happening here, because now I have to wait until, I won't see this going until a year and a half from now or something like that. And I'm sure you do this, but it will be interesting, you may have mentioned this, to have fluent processes. So if something is not working, to be able to address it on time, so we don't get frustration from it. As a teacher, you are here for X number of years. Even if you're frustrated, you'll get to see it next time. But as a parent of a student who's going towards graduation. Sometimes skipping one window may mean, do I get to have this credit or not? So it's not a statement on this particular course because I have know nothing about it, so I'm not taking any position. I'm saying, as you are working so hard on doing this, maybe we can build windows so you have people that know if this is going to work or not, that could bring back the feedback quickly and say, hey, if you make few tweaks here and there, this may work better. So
Correct.
just a comment. One more comment and I'm done with AP credits. I don't know if you do this study or not, but it will be very useful for families. When our students go to college, they have to take placement regardless of the courses that they take on AP. And for many families, in particular, first generation families, this comes as a big surprise. So my student did this big effort and got 3 AP and whatever, and then he or she took a placement, and they're asking him or her to retake calculus or to retake English 101 or something like that. How are we handling this in terms of expectations, or are we working with our regular feeders to make sure that this doesn't happen? I know it's out of our scope, but because we're offering it.
Yeah, I would think that's a township question, so I would defer to you in terms of the township work in that regards.
Was the question when students place at the high school or from the high school to the college level?
The high school to the college level.
Oh,
Okay.
Sorry.
We do the job, the student gets the AP and thinks, now I'm moving to whatever I'm going, Northwestern, and I'm going to go directly into calculus 2 because I took my AP. And then I walk into Northwestern and say, well, hold on, you have to take a placement. And I'm not asking for us to know about every possible university, but at least on the common places where we stand. Do we have any inkling that this is working, that students are not having a problem?
Many of our students receive the credit at the college level and not having those placement classes anymore.
Okay.
So especially, I can start with Oakney, for example, they removed ALEX, they have it as one of measuring place. Another measuring place is they have completed Algebra 2 at the high school level, and they have scored either on the SAT or ACT to a certain level to move right away into college bearing classes. Many of our AP and dual credit courses, they receive credit at the college level without taking a placement level course, to my knowledge, but it's something definitely to look deeper into it. But I've not heard that they wouldn't be receiving that credit.
Yeah, right now for our four-year universities in math, it's less than 3% historically do not receive college credit classes when they go in. So we find we are so far ahead of the state and the national level on that front. Our students graduate and get into credit-bearing classes. Of our AP courses, I'd have to pull the data, but I believe of the 3,700 tests, nearly 3,500 receive college credit. So our AP program is robust and successful. They put a lot of work into ensuring that if a student's going to take that course, that they're being positioned for success.
That's great. Thank you.
Yep.
Mr. John?
Good, thank you.
So I have a couple of questions that I guess best for last, maybe not the best. So the first question I had was in terms of the guide and everything. Are students allowed, if I noticed on page 33, for example, contemporary literature, English 4, contemporary literature, it's offered at GBS. English 4 contemporary social themes is offered at GBN. They're both half semester classes and everything. So assuming these are two significantly different classes after all the reviews and everything, if a student at GBN wanted to participate in the class at GBS, what are the means by which they can participate in those classes? Is there a way that they talk to their counselor or anything, or is it you've got to wait till next year and we figure out if we're going to add it at the other school?
I'm going to defer to this one because I think I incorrectly answered this last time.
Good evening. So through the staffing process, our goal between GBN and GBS is to try and make sure that all of our students have opportunities to the diverse coursework that the district offers. However, we do have to make sure that we uphold the seat limitations that are available in one building or another. So I'm going to give a quick example to explain how we would provide a traveling course, as we call it. A very common one is Hebrew housed at GBN. And Hebrew very rarely fills completely at GBN. So at GBS, we offer that to our students. And at the time of course selection, we indicate to them that it doesn't typically run at GBS, but they could take it at GBN. And very recently, in the past 3 years, we have started to provide a shuttle service between GBS and GBN to remove any other barriers that had historically been in place of students being unable to self-transport. So we work with the schedulers to be able to fit it within the master schedule. We account for those traveling students in the overall staffing plan to make sure whichever building is receiving the travelers has the seats available for it. However, we're not looking to do that broad scale across every courses because we are trying to ensure that students can stay at their home school and that we build programs in each of the buildings. So we typically do this with our specialized programming. For example, Spanish Heritage Language Program that I mentioned earlier this evening that GBS hosts, or welding at GBN. We have a variety of these unique learning opportunities, and we're very transparent in that communication of offering students capacity to travel.
So it doesn't apply to every class is what you're telling me?
Correct,
So
yes.
it's only select classes.
Mhm.
May I recommend in the guide an asterisk or something if there is that option to indicate that that is, and then back page or something, the instructions on how a family could go about asking or what they should ask their counselor.
Absolutely.
Because this is such wonderful work that makes it just much more transparent in all your guides that, okay, wait, this is one I can ask about.
Absolutely.
This one is, or if it's a rotating class, if it's, if the other idea that I understand you may have faculty at one school 1 year and next year maybe.
Well, it
depending.
depends on development of programming. So I can give another example of, for example, ASL, American Sign Language. For years and years, our North students traveled over to Glenbrook South. But then North, this current academic year, reached a number of students to be able to justify a complete section of ASL 1 at GBN without the students needing to travel. So we try to be very flexible and adaptive each year, always trying to reach the outcome of completing a program or a course at the home school.
Right.
So we could indicate it in the course guide, but if we see in the process of staffing that we meet that minimum threshold that's been set to run a class, then we'd rather run it at the home school and not have the students travel.
Okay, so again, the point is if there is some additional details to note those, that'll make it very true.
Yeah.
And the other one, it may be under student services, or it could be a page at the end, is going back to our question earlier about growth mindset and the opportunity to move diagonally or into other areas. Love the grids, but I guess reinforce, again, talking to their counselors about if they have questions about class placements or how do they go to select classes. This guide is a wonderful opportunity for them to do that. Looking at, I think it's on page 61, the math guide. And I know from GBN experience, there are a number of freshmen, and there were some at South as well too, that were actually in AP BC Calculus their freshman year, and vice versa. We've had a number of kids go through these programs at different, and I know this is a model of what is typical. So that may be another disclaimer on the charts. These are typical, but we do have this matrix approach here where we put students into different classes based on their abilities. You may have a freshman sitting in with juniors in a class, and it's not necessarily the honors class track because they've mastered the skills, but this was the appropriate level. And that's one thing that's always been really remarkable about the Glenbrooks, that we are putting these kids where they're challenged appropriately. And sometimes the labels, and while we're trying to get these charts together, we kind of start feeling like we're boxing them in, but we're actually much more flexible. So I would add, maybe this is the even it's noted as recommendation track and stuff, and then same footnotes, see your counselor regarding placement and everything.
Yes, I really like that because that's the intention. We find that we get, the challenge of something like this is we get mired in the details or the nuances of the Glenbrooks, and then everything is an exception. But I really just like the simplicity of the language. This is a typical pattern or typical path, but there are multiple pathways to the same outcome. So really like that language. Thank you.
And that kind of reinforces what my colleague was saying about also college placements and everything with what they're doing. A lot of the schools are giving credits for you getting that 4 or 5 on your math or your English, However, they're still requiring you to go still take their calculus 1 because it's a rite of passage. It's the boot camp that you're going through that university. So you walk in with 24 credit hours, but you're still forced to take certain core classes regardless, because we want you to learn our way. So I know it's a balancing act in terms of what can we do with that, and dual credits doesn't even address that too, because even with dual credits, they will not offer it as well too and go, you still have to take my calculus 1. And that varies unfortunately by the thousands of schools that are out there. So yeah, I guess it's that other disclaimer, subject to,
Correct.
again.
And
you
that's
know,
what we have up
individual
in the
schools.
front about dual credit. We try to speak to that so people can have a better understanding and how to calibrate that. So we can make sure to highlight that even more.
No, wonderful work again, and another round of applause. If anyone has any additional comments or questions for the team, again, please feel free to shoot Dr. Johnson a note and he'll get it off to them. Moving on then to our next item. Whoops, am I clicking too many things here? 9.3, acceptance of a donation award for the Glenbrooks.
So this is a very quick one. We have found ourselves in a very fortunate position in which the school, Glenbrook South School Booster Club, has committed to donating funds in order for us to buy about $141,000 worth of equipment at Glenbrook South. Dr. Gravel, will you take us through the details?
Certainly. We had an opportunity to learn more about Glenbrook North Booster Club's donation last week, and we gave an early preview that we would have a separate donation from the Glenbrook South Booster Club. I want to really give credit to Athletic Director Mr. Tom Meadis for all of his work, not only identifying that there was a improvement opportunity that doesn't only benefit athletics, but also physical education courses, but also work with Dr. Patak to facilitate a comprehensive bid and evaluation process. If we take a look at Table 1, as identified on page 2, you'll notice that we received 4 different quotations for similar fitness equipment. We're recommending proceeding forward with awarding the bid to Direct Fitness Solutions for equipment that is ultimately branded Dynamic Fitness at the cost of $140,599. We provided a variety of illustrations that will give you an understanding of the layout and then also what the equipment looks like. And for those who may not recall the exact layout, this equipment will be going into a secondary weight room, which is directly to the left of the field house. It's actually accessible through some garage doors, for lack of better terms. We look forward to replacing our existing equipment that is quite dated and beyond its useful life. And just really also want to recognize the work of the Glenbrook South boosters. This is an investment that our parents, our community, and their fundraising efforts has made possible, and we're very excited for this.
No, we really appreciate the community and the foundation for all their work to do this on behalf of the Glenbrook South and everything. So it's very exciting. We've got, earlier in our consent, after a few discussions, had our folks up north doing something, and now folks south of Willow have contributed as well too. So that's wonderful. This is for discussion today only. It'll come back on consent. Any questions? I'll start over on Ms. Sequin.
Good, thank you.
Dr. All good. All right, so we'll bring this back on consent.
Thank you all. And thank you again to our boosters.
All right, moving on to 9.4, Board Policies and Procedures. This is a follow-up to our previous discussion regarding 7.160, personal appearance, which then, as you may recall, then led to changes also in the handbooks at the schools and everything. It was the basis and stuff. So, Dr. Johns?
Thank you. Since we last met, the GBN and GBS teams completed their review of the recommendations and the questions that the board asked and made both handbook and policy revisions accordingly. These documents incorporate the feedback from the November 11th. We believe provides a greater clarity to the readers while addressing areas of growth in tone of structure as discussed by the board. Dr. Gravel, were there other details that we should make note of?
No, the only other element that I would add at all is I'm going to read directly from 6.20 school dress code. This was an important statement that the board had asked that we summarize. And I believe actually some of these words are from Dr. George's and what she shared with the board. So a school dress code is designed to honor the dignity and ensure the belonging of all of our students, allowing students to express their individuality while ensuring that attire does not interfere with the orderly operation of the school or the health, safety, or education of any student. This approach underscores the district's commitment to fostering an inclusive environment where all students feel valued. Through the use of explicit language, the dress code equips students, families, and staff with a shared understanding of daily expectations. I wanted to emphasize that because that represented a significant amount of the feedback, in addition to some other changes that we're happy to respond to any questions that you might have.
Mr. O'Hare, as being a member of the, anything additional you'd like to add? Okay. Anyone, any questions? Dr. Steinberg?
Just appreciate the work put on it. You already had put a lot of work on it, just adding the twist, so thank you.
Mr. Schein? Anyone else? Ms.
I just want to
Malmbeck?
say, I feel like the revisions were very responsive to what was brought forward at the last meeting, so I was very happy to see that. And I think they're really helpful. I like the positive statement at the beginning of the policy. And it were, I guess that's handbook, so not policy, sorry.
It does also, though, exist in the policy
It does
to
exist
Dr.
in the
Steinberg's
policy,
recommendation.
right, and that sort of sets the table for this,
Mhm.
right? That, you know, it's not, in order to have everyone feel included, we're doing this, not, we're restricting you so that, you know, it just has a completely different, it turned it on its head, and I think it makes it more effective also in setting out what we're trying to accomplish. So I appreciate that.
Ms. Sequin, anything?
No, I appreciate all the changes. Thank you.
Yeah, please share my appreciation as well to, I know actually our president who's away now on policy as well too, that was involved in this with Mr. O'Hare and the rest of the policy committee in making these changes. This is a very important piece of the puzzle and the ongoing work that the committee has been doing with updating all of our policies and then integrating them into handbooks, procedures, and everything else that the schools do here to make everybody feel like they belong safely. So this will be coming back on consent at the upcoming meeting. So that leaves us now to 9.5, the ISBA conference debrief. A few of us had the opportunity to attend this past weekend. The conference, there was a number of, and we'll go around the room to those that attended to share what they've participated in and everything. I, at the high level, can at least, I'll start it off with a couple common things that I observed with I want to say hundreds of districts that were represented there. We are not alone in the issues and everything else that we're facing. It seems to be there is a systemic changes in the way education is being supported and what the issues are that districts are facing, and forcing a lot of districts to really go back to the fundamentals, remembering exactly why are they here, who are they representing, why, based on what should I be doing to keep this community going, keep our kids going, keep education going positively, constructively, and equipping these kids for the future that is yet to be known. So that is something that I kind of seen overall. I can quickly report, I guess, on one piece as the delegate to the conference in terms of the some of the legislation that the group will be promoting and everything. No surprises really, other than this was also a change in dynamic. Everything that came out in the guide in advance that we discussed that was on consent was adopted. However, the process changed all at the last minute. 2 out of the 6 that were on consent were pulled from consent last minute for discussion. Still ended up going through vote and passed eventually, but it just showed the change in dynamic where every piece, everyone felt the need to have a voice, have to be heard and everything. It created a lot of frustration among the delegates as well too, because what became could have been a 2-hour meeting that was prepared and done by, started separating out. You had the parliamentarians, everyone coming out to try to figure what was going to happen next. How do we go about this? Oh, wait, this person brought it up. Now we've opened up discussion. Let's go back and forth, make sure everybody gets their time and everything. And that adds to the costs. So they're looking, one thing I heard from some of the folks afterwards, they're going to be looking at how many of these now do they bring forward and everything. And this is just the group that is recommending to our legislatures, lobbying for what maybe changes happening. None of the appeals went through either, but again, the people wanted their chance to be heard one more time. And it was interesting, even on the appeal, you're appealing to have the discussion. The people that came up to voice that were not appealing that piece, they were appealing the actual matter, trying to bring that up as part of the discussion, which I think added to the frustration as well too. So it reminds us to use the rules, and they're there for a reason to keep things efficiently. So that was something that I noticed have changed. But with that, I'm going to start with Mr. O'Hara here.
Actually, Pete,
Oh,
can I ask
yes.
you a question on that? What were the two that were being held back?
4 of them were held.
Oh, four. Which four?
Actually, hold on. I have my sheets here.
I'm curious.
Yes, they were held back for consent, for discussion, and they did pass, and they passed by not even close.
Overwhelmingly?
Yeah, not
Yeah.
even close. It was, the same as, 10 votes versus 300.
Yeah.
So it wasn't anything drastic, but they used the procedures and everything. I had my list here. I apologize.
I'm sorry if you
No,
didn't.
no, no. I was going to report on, 'em, and then I figured I'd spare you folks. Is this, oh wait, here it is, sorry. It's printed in large writing, no wonder I'm not noticing it. Okay, the two that made it, so the Illinois State Seal Bioliteracy was one that was debated. Briefly, the resolution to support the evidence-based funding was debated. The resolution that would support the Unified Health Plan for school districts to participate through the central management services was debated. An amendment to the existing position statement on election day school closures was debated.
Oh.
So the only two that went the measure to, that one, there's another part of 6, but, and also the TIF, a measure that would advocate for TIF process reforms was also debated. Number 6, which there was a piece also on some language that they wanted stated about why schools can be open to keep it local. That was a 7.08 was also discussed. So yeah, everything that was on consent just pulled
Okay.
pretty
Thank
much.
you.
So Mr. O'Hara.
No, it was a good conference. I guess for me, I went to one of the ones on funding, and I was fascinated by. You don't realize how much RJ and his department does on just keeping everything running on a regular basis. And talk to some other school districts, it doesn't run quite so well at times. So and the delay in the property taxes was an issue for some schools, and for us, it was concerning, but just kind of a blip. So thank you, RJ, and thank you. Yes.
Mr. Sean.
Well, you heard me mention one of the seminars I went to, which was about dual credit, and it was extremely interesting. And of course, I was trying to compare what they do to what we do. They've been at it quite a bit longer, 214, and there's a lot there that I think we can learn. And I think we're looking at them. There's no secret there. We have members of our team who worked there, and but they're a few years ahead of us, and so their number of offerings is considerably greater, as is the level of adoption. So that said, to me, there's a lot we can do with this. And the superintendent, to his credit, really stressed the cost savings to families. I mean, I think we kind of sometimes want to kind of play, not really want to say that publicly, like, why would you do that? But the reality is a student can easily come out with a year of college credit, and at 20 to 100 grand a pop for a year of college, depending what you're doing, it is not an insignificant amount, but also is a great opportunity for students. And the other thing that was interesting, and ours kind of looked the same up there, was there's really this dichotomy between AP and dual credit. They were not seeing much of a diminishment in the number of AP student courses taken. So you add up all the kids times the number of courses, so like, I guess it'd be like the number of tests actually. And they were kind of constant, more or less, while the AP number was sort of, it's gradually up. And so they weren't cannibalizing each other. In his explanation, he felt they really weren't the same students. He said there seems, in his opinion, to be sort of this prestige associated with AP that dual credit doesn't really seem to have. So for certain families, they want the prestige or apparent prestige of the AP offering. And they viewed that to be of greater value. Thought that was interesting. And my own personal opinion, I know if you take the dual credit and you get the credit, you've got the credit. I mean, you've got that credit, and generally a college is not going to, say that's not a college credit. So that was one thing. And the other thing, there was a big emphasis on trust. Trust as a topic. So this was one of the two big general sessions, and I went to another one that was more of a workshop. And of course, I'm sitting here thinking, well, how would this, apply to us? But it was really eye-opening. The gentleman who did the presentation was very dynamic, very interesting, wrote a book, easy to follow, but so much flows from trust and hard to earn, easy to lose. I think we all understand that. And so if you think sometimes we have challenges, during the general session, the gentleman doing the prayer, he says, turn to your neighbor, and, we did this 2 or 3 times, and the gentleman sitting next to me was a superintendent from a small district next to East St. Louis, Illinois. And I told him about some of us, and he said, well, we have a board member who at the meeting texts his wife about closed session things, and it's on Facebook literally while we are sitting at the meeting. So when things look bleak, they can be materially worse. And I just felt so bad for this guy, because it's like, it's almost, we've been through this. It's very difficult to sanction or discipline a board member. And it's like, gee, the guy was like despondent about it, and it's understandable. So I thought it was a very worthwhile conference, not the best. I thought some of the sessions were kind of like sleepers, but learned some things, met some people. So that was my experience. Thank you.
Dr. Steinberg?
Yeah, thank you. And so I went to 2 sessions. I have 2 approaches when I go to conferences. One of them is like what you just said, look at names and go to some sessions and see what happens. And the others, I look like going to the gym, try to work on my muscle memory. So in this time, I hadn't been in this conference not going literally to the gym, but to the mind gym. I haven't been on the AAA for, I think, 4 years. So when looking at the sessions, I look for sessions that address directly board members. What should we do on this or that? Almost as if this is my first time walking there. So I shared with RJ one on decisions, which was really good, done by IASB, and was throwing cases like left and right and asking people interactively to say, it was who should make the decision. I was kind of like a whole thing. This is the superintendent decision. This is the board decision. This is superintendent, but board should respect the superintendent. They should coalesce together. And the interesting thing was that, and you were there, RJ was there, except for one, probably there were like 15 cases, except for one, rarely you see anywhere in the room, 80% of people coalescing in this should be a decision from. Like we were all over the place. And the ISB person was challenging everybody. Why do you think it's this way? And he would say, what's the right answer? Okay. What's very refreshing, what's, thinking about sometime professional development. Again, just for muscle memory, we get used to doing things, and then there has to be some marker that says what should be. And although we have policies and procedures, sometimes we forget or we just go with the spirit of it. So to me, it was interesting. Then I went to superintendent evaluation because we did something that we do. And I'll add a comment that I think Pete made to me later on something else. The session was given by a superintendent, a board president, and a board member, all from the same district. and they were talking about how the process worked together. And it was moderated by somebody else. It was very interesting. And later, when I think it was earlier, not earlier, I think, Peter, you were the one mentioning we should be offering sessions as well as the district because
You're
we are
stealing my
good.
thunder where I was going to give you guys an assignment for in a few minutes.
I'm saying we in terms of the administrators of the district or teachers of the district. But I think this is something where I think we do some things that we do very well. And it would be nice to communicate with other people on the things that we do very well. So it was a dual thing. And the last thing is talking about visual memory. I was so excited about the talk. I ended up buying the book. I'm already, I think, a quarter into it or something. I haven't read a physical book in a long time. So this has been good, challenging experience. Thank you.
So I'll add, so besides the delegation and going to do that, and I enjoyed the general session and I missed a few sessions because of that. But I have two approaches. There are sessions I put on my agenda to go and see. And then if they don't catch my attention in the first 5 minutes, then I start wandering the hallways and jumping into the other ones to see if they're on topic and stuff, because you can write a good description. It does half the time they're not talking about it. But there was a few on board self-evaluations, which I was very interested in. It's on our plan to do that in June and everything. I got a couple good contacts of sharing their experience of what they found beneficial and what they also found as pitfalls when they went down the self-evaluation process as well too, based on who they did. One of them had a very interesting suggestion where they bring back their past board members to those self-evaluations as well too. They invite them to be part of that. That gets a little dicey in the closed meetings piece. So I've got to talk about they're your predecessors that are doing it over at Rolling 214. So they've invited them back and everything for it and stuff. So just have to figure out how they end up doing it. And I think it may be part of the assessment. I don't know if they bring them back for the discussion. So they share in what they want. Because they do then strategically tie their movement for the board that's in place to that evaluation. How are we doing on things, and use that as a guiding point. So that's one thing. I know we're going to discuss that at the next meeting, but so I was looking at that. The other one, there was working collaboratively. That was another one that was very, with the board working collaboratively and everything. There was some interesting points. There's a huge debate over what is the difference between transparency and collaboration. And you sometimes are very you think you're transparent, but it's not the answer I wanted. So I was being transparent. Now, it's not. They raised that as an excuse that it's not being transparent. You're not going through we shared everything with the process and stuff. How do you educate the board? And so their advice was sharing actually more about the process, and which is not very exciting for most people. Then when they have an issue and they come to a board wanting to wrestle with it, where do I go? And it's like, well, here's the process. You go to the committee, you discuss it there, then it works its way up. But that's where you can be mostly heard and everything. And that may be some things that we want to look at as we go forward as well too. Carol, you went to the Fun FOIA one and everything. There was but I did get I popped into one on that as well too. It came up I think they may have done a repeat of it. It was interesting to see how we're required to do more and more in that area and what people have access to. So it becomes another thing for board training, I think we'll all have to be mindful of is what is captured, what is in writing, what is discoverable now and everything as well too. And what is considered work product, and while you're collaborating to develop that product, and so that we are educated on that. So coming out of it, Dr. Johns and RJ both ended up getting texts from me about everybody's going to get a holiday gift. Bruce will be excited about this too. You'll get the Trust Edge, which I'm hoping we can discuss at upcoming meetings. Kind of along those lines, but during that session, and you guys can chime in that were there, but what was interesting, and I've seen the studies in the business world, that does trust some of the other issues we start talking about, communication issues and other things. Usually that is a symptom of something else that you have to go find out what is. And
this is right on, at least the first pages are right on target.
Right. So I thought it'd be good for us as we're going through this in the upcoming months and stuff, to kind of teeing up for self-evaluation and other things to understand also are we headed as well too in terms of that. So those are some of my takeaways from it. And I'm trying to think of Dr. Johns and RJ, you guys got a chance to go, and Carol got a chance to go into some sessions. Anything?
I went to a couple of really good ones, and I particularly liked the speaker on trust. I thought he was fantastic. And I found myself quoting him to cabinet members today at their dismay. RJ and I started off, thanks, Carol. RJ and I started off by attending the ISBE's Accountability and Support Session. And it was led by members of the Illinois State Board of Education's administration. And what they started off with was identifying that we have a problem of practice in Illinois in which our cut scores for performance levels are too restrictive, to the point that students are getting A's and B's on dual credit courses, but not passing proficiency on the cut scores. And they went on to identify that we had the fourth highest set of performance expectations in the country. And they are going to go through a process that really starts this January or February, to reevaluate our performance levels for all grades and all subjects, and then put together a recommendation for a redesign of the accountability measures, much of what Ryan talked about today. This is a massive project. It won't be done until probably sometime in 2026. Where the cut score performance levels will change, the standards expectations for every class, every subject, every level will be reevaluated and likely change. So we already know that we have some frustration that we won't see the state's recommended cut scores for pre-ACT and ACT for 8 months, 9 months, I think is what we're anticipating. So the good side of things is the ISBE is recognizing that they, as they describe, have a problem of practice. The downside is that I don't think they really were responsive when we said the timing of when we get our data is absolutely essential. We get our data so late that it's often very hard for us to make changes in the school year in order to impact the kids whose performance we just measured. So that has been a problem of ours ever since No Child Left Behind. We're still struggling with, but it'll be interesting to see how this process takes place. They did commit to a process that would use lots of our teachers, lots of our administrators. So we in 225 will look closely for those opportunities so we can participate. But it was good to know that. I'd rather know that now than read about it in 6 months. So I thought that was valuable. And then I went to a neat tech one about all kinds of tech tools from a colleague of ours not too far from us who really is a leader in tools, actually how to help us make our work as administrators and administrative assistants, how to make us more efficient. So Dr. Gabel, did you and Ms. Smith? I'm sorry.
Oh, can I ask one follow-up question?
Sure.
What do you define as cut scores? I'm not.
So on the assessments at the performance levels that they perform at what point do you say someone is proficient or?
So when you say cut score, are you saying that that's the score at which below that they're not proficient and
Correct.
above it they are?
Yeah.
Okay.
And they still get a good grade on the course anyway. That's what you're mentioning.
Yeah, so what the ISB has pointed out that we have students who won't score proficient on the state assessments, but are getting A's and B's in dual credit courses, which are really benchmarked against as dictated by the local community college or the college in their particular network. So that's not supposed to happen.
Okay.
Dr. Gravel?
Right.
Well, I certainly did enjoy my time with Dr. Steinberg. It was interesting. The questions for decisions was, as Dr. Steinberg mentioned, they present a scenario and you have to decide whose decision is it, superintendent, board, somewhere in between. And it made me feel a little bit like experiencing a standardized test because they were very creatively worded to maybe see if you were going to get the right answer or the wrong answer. But Dr. Steinberg and I enjoyed some nice conversations there. The other thing I wanted to bring up is I had an opportunity on Thursday last week to attend one of our Management Association board meetings, and we received a legislative update. It's an important one because it has to do with the different pension system tiers that we have. And so there has been a lot of discussion about what we refer to as Tier 2 for our TRS and IMRF annuitants and members, and there's a substantial difference in terms of pension benefits, and there's legislation to possibly address that. The natural question, however, is that the state of Illinois recently announced, or members of the governor's budget office recently announced that the state is projected to have a deficit in the upcoming fiscal year. So to make changes to pension programs will likely cost more. And so how does that balance in the equation? But it was very good to understand what's happening in Springfield and what might happen in the next legislative session. The final thing I'll share is that one of the things that I know Mrs. Hughes and Dr. Georges promotes a lot among our staff, especially in our buildings, is the importance of professional growth and development. And the Joint Annual Conference, or III, is just that for members of the Board of Education, members of cabinet, things of that nature, to come together and to refine our art of actually governing. And I think there was a lot of great conversations that were had. I would also challenge ourselves, I think Mr. Glowacki might have been going down this path, to realize that when we listen to different sessions, it's kind of a reminder of some great things that we're doing in our district. And perhaps this might be an opportunity for us to come together and maybe even submit a session or two for consideration, because there's a lot of stuff that's happening in the state that we can learn from. I think this is also an opportunity for us to share that knowledge. And I think the best PD happens when you're giving and taking away from it. So a little challenge for the future that we'll talk about in the future.
And I was going to say, I'm going to challenge this board. It's a near future because I think proposals have to start going in by January.
Oh, wow.
And so, while it's still fresh, if you have a topic in mind that you think we can highlight, shoot me and Bruce and Dr. Johns and Dr. Gravel an email, and we'll see about who may be the appropriate people to pair up, because I think it is beneficial. While we're faced with all the similar challenges that many districts that I mentioned earlier are wrestling with, the one thing I see that we do differently is how collaboratively we do actually work the problems and go through our process to come to solutions at the end to address those problems and take them on. The one that kept coming up, a lot of schools were discussing, was the whole cell phone issue. And, that was one of the pieces of one of the recommended legislation pieces. And I'm like, oh yeah, we did it. No problem. Yeah, here's how you can do this. And they were like, wait, how did you do that? They were concerned about, there were, but, they were concerned about what the what ifs. What if this? What if that parent brings it up and everything else? And so even something that we take for granted and how we did it, someone else can benefit from. So, I'm going to challenge you guys on that one by the next meeting if you guys can come up with a couple topics.
Ms. Smith, do you have one to share?
Oh, yes.
I seem to go to legal sessions. So yes, I did go to the FOIA, and it was not only FOIA, but it was OMA, so the Open Meetings Act. So I know that all of the board members have taken the OMA training that you have to do when you get elected to the board. But it's always a good idea to kind of have a refresher on that. And I really enjoyed the FOIA piece because it was, both pieces were actually done by members of the Attorney General's office. So it was people from the PAC. So if we give someone, or either we deny a FOIA or we don't give them the information that they think that they need, then they can go to the PAC. And so it was really interesting to hear from the people of the PAC of how they review those things and how they make their determinations. With the OMA, they talked about meetings. And they talked about gatherings, which I thought was really interesting. So here we're at this formal meeting, but then there's also gatherings, which we also had while we were at the conference. We had lunch together. And so board members had to be very careful about the conversations that they have in those gatherings. We talked about our kids. We talked about what we were doing for Thanksgiving. But as board members are in those gatherings, they have to be very careful about not conducting business. And it's not only those gatherings, but it's also, it could be on a Zoom call. It could be making sure that we don't reply to all if there are emails from the administration that the board is getting, because that could be seen as conducting business. I also went to a legal update that was actually by our own law firm. So John Fester was there and Lynn Himes was there, and they talked a lot about Title IX, about OCR complaints, and about how some changes may be coming based on what the new administration is thinking. So they talked about immigration, they talked about actually the future of ISBE a little bit, book banning and censorship, and also sports teams. So that was really interesting. It was called We Can't Make This Stuff Up. So they they did have some really interesting anecdotes about what was about some of the things that, like Mr. Glowacki says, are happening in other districts where you go, whew, that I'm glad that that's not happening in our district. So it was very interesting.
Thank you, and thank you for your comment. So again, challenged by the next meeting, topic ideas that we can start working on some quick proposals. The proposal process is not that onerous, but come up with a jazzy title and we can work through it from there. So that kind of concludes the open part of our meeting for this evening. We do have some matters for closed session. Our next board meeting will be December 9th at 7 p.m. right here. So today, just quickly to sum up, we approved 2 agreements, the retirement agreement and a new contract. We heard about the III conference. We reviewed our Illinois school report card stats and what we can do and where we're focused on improving and enhancing those. We discussed the curricular proposal and the new curricular guide that we love. Sold, New York Times bestseller list. And then we had their second read of our policy 7.16 and the supplemental handbook policies associated with it. So with that, I'm now going to, we do have matters, as I mentioned, for close to consider the appointment, employment, compensation, discipline, performance, or dismissal of specific employees of the public body or legal counsel for the public body, including hearing testimony on complaint lodged against an employee of the public body or against legal counsel for the public body to determine its validity, security procedures, and use of personnel and equipment to respond to an actual, a threatened, or reasonably potential danger to the safety of employees, students, staff, the public property, and litigation when an action against affecting or on behalf of a particular public body has been filed and is pending before a court or administrative tribunal, or when the public body finds that an action is probable or imminent, in which case the basis for the finding shall be recorded and entered into the minutes of the closed meeting per section 2C1, 9, and 10 of the Open Meeting Acts. I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second.
All right, let's.
All in favor?
All in.
Aye.
Thank you.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Let's be back here at quick bio break and get back. It should be pretty quick, I think.
So do we have the case that the motion is long?
And Mr. Glowacki, we are back.
All right, thank you. We're back in open session. We have one item coming out, possible action regarding early graduation. I'll entertain a motion to grant the request to graduate early.
I move to approve the early graduation as discussed in closed session.
Second.
Aye.
Aye.
All right, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second. Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, have a great Thanksgiving, everyone, and thank you.
Happy
10:43 PM.